and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video, I would like to talk about Tomorrow by Together's The Chaos Chapter Freeze, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of what we know so far to see what we can expect from the upcoming comeback. A few days ago, Tomorrow by Together announced their comeback with a full album titled The Chaos Chapter Freeze, which is gonna be released on the 31st of May and will have 3 versions called You, Boy, and World. Now, since at the time I'm recording this, the concept trailer is still a few days away, I thought it would be nice to try and guess the possible concept, focusing on the little clues that they might have left us in the past. As always, I'm gonna update this theory as soon as new information are released, but until then, let's dive right in and see what's going on. Now, if there's one thing that we know for sure about this comeback, is that the concept of the album will be about the boys' world devolving into chaos. This is something that was foreshadowed all the way back in Can't You See Me, was announced during the Melon Music Awards performance, and was eventually shown in the Starseekers The Doom's Night, where a dragon appeared in the sky to cause the end of the world as a result of the boys' childhood game essentially coming to life. Much like I mentioned in my last video, the end goal of the boys' adventure seems to stop the Doom's Night from taking place and save the tomorrow that they want to build together. And while we can assume that by the end the boys will eventually succeed in their task, getting there might actually be easier said than done. Now, even if up until now the videos always hinted at the idea that fire was gonna cause the end of the world, the Chaos Chapter is already kicking in with a surprise, because instead of burning, it seems that we'll actually be freezing instead. Looking back, this concept might have been foreshadowed all the way back in their performance at the Soul Music Awards, because in the VCR we saw a phone with weather reports that actually told us that a cold wave was gonna hit the entire country. Since back in January a cold wave did in fact hit Korea for over a month, however, back then I assumed that the hint was actually the heat wave that was mentioned right after. And this is because in the message the cold wave was happening in real time, while the heat wave was expected shortly. Knowing what we know now, however, it seems that the most plausible explanation is that the Chaos Chapter will start off with a cold wave and then gradually move through the weather reports until we eventually get to the heat wave. And the reason why I think that is because, as it turns out, this is not the only clue that we can find in the performance. You see, after the VCR, the stage actually begins with snow falling in the background and a frozen tear appearing on screen before exploding into pieces. This is the very same logo that was chosen for Twitter, as well as the symbol that is associated to the world version of the album, and sure enough, this is exactly what is shown in the performance, because after the tear explodes, its fragments actually create a frozen reality where the boys end up performing We Lost the Summer. Now, right off the bat, this is very interesting, because back in that song, the boys actually foreshadowed the freeze concept by telling us that when they lost the summer, they also lost each other, and now they're stuck in an endless winter because their clock lost the weather. As we see the boys initially playing with the snow, the video also shows us Yeonjun standing alone in front of the mirror, while the reality inside of their reflection is darkened by a snowstorm. And even if Yeonjun is still on the other side at this point, when we see him backing away from the mirror, his reflection hints at the idea that this cold is gradually taking over him. Now, even if We Lost the Summer is a song about the pandemic, if we consider it in the context of the storyline, these visuals might actually foreshadow a few things. If we keep in mind the lyrics, for instance, we can say that the winter is caused by their separation and the feeling of loneliness that overpowers them. This is a winter that originates from the inside, it's something that affects them mentally and that slowly creeps into the outside world as a result. So if the summer was the season of youth, friendship and dreams, the winter might be the season of loneliness, sadness and misery. Since in the story the world of their imagination is a maze in the mirror, however, these visuals might also imply that chaos is the result of what happens in the other world, and this idea might actually be confirmed by Blue Hour as well. If we take a look at the lyrics, for instance, the song told us that in the hour between the dog and the wolf, the boys want to be trapped in magic and freeze this moment in order to make it last forever, and this is very suspicious because, by the looks of it, their wish became true in the worst possible way. You see, the other world here is a place of fantasy and imagination where they can play together and enjoy their youth as much as they want, but since this reality is essentially a part of them, what happens inside of it might change according to the way their relationship actually evolves. When the boys are friends, for instance, the Magic Island is a beautiful place where they can reunite and be happy, but if something negative takes place, then this world might reflect this change because it's literally a mirror image of reality. Now, back in Can't You See Me, the video showed us that the end of the world essentially begins when the boys fight with each other and their dream goes up in flames as a result. In the Eternity era, this concept was also portrayed in Puma, which according to Yeonjun himself is the representation of them choosing the devil's side that frees itself and comes to the surface because of that. Now, after watching The Doom's Night, I actually think that this sudden change of character might actually be caused by the pact that the boys make with the cat, not only because the pact literally transforms them into monsters, but also because in Nap of a Star their transformation was associated with isolation. By the looks of it, it seems that them choosing the devil's side brought the monster to the surface, and this process caused them to fight and bring chaos upon themselves. So even if the boys might have wished to be trapped in magic while they were in the summer of their life, the boys are now trapped in a frozen world that is the result of their mistakes. As Blue Hour showed us, in that fantasy the boys are in autumn. The summer is already slipping away, and as much as they want to hold on to it, by the end we see Bumgyu living the dream by himself. No matter how much they want to be together, a lot of clues hint at the fact that their dynamics are changing and the boys are drifting away from one another. And this sense of alienation might eventually come in full effect in the winter, where their monstrosity might even be more evident than before. Back in We Lost the Summer, for instance, the eternal winter that the boys are going through is also something that changes them as a result of their separation, because if in the lyrics they tell us that they miss each other, they also ask to give them back themselves. Now this line here not only implies that they want to go back to the summer that they lost, but also that to some extent this winter changed them to the point that they no longer feel like themselves. And this idea is very fitting with the monster concept, because when they chose the devil's side, they freed a side of themselves that they're actually ashamed of. Back in the debut VCR, for instance, the story tells us that Yeonjun grows horns on his head and runs away to a place where nobody can find him, but his misery ends when Hyunin Kai comes along and reminds him that his horns are beautiful just like his wings. This process actually transforms a world in black and white to a world full of color, and this concept was also explored back in Cat and Dog, where the lyrics told us that in a monochrome world, the person that they love shines in red and blue. Now this contrast of colors here is actually very suspicious, because if on the one hand the boys hinted at the comeback with a series of pictures in black and white, Yeonjun also said that this album will be full of colors. On top of that, the album itself is monochrome with the exception of the colorful lines that actually create their own name, so this might imply that in the chaos that surrounds them, love is the only thing that is able to bring back the color in their life. This is something that applies to the story, but also in real life, so it's no surprise that the symbol of the heart is associated to you, because you are what connects them together in order to build a better tomorrow. As Nap of a Star told us, even if they're far away, on the sunset evening their heart is full of you. But in the teaser of the logo, we also saw that this heart might be trapped in the winter that they created, and this is an imagery that might foreshadow that Freeze could actually show us their quest to free themselves from the cold and regain their color through love. If you look closely, the boy version is associated to a lightning, and even if back in Runaway this symbol was associated specifically to Yeonjun, I think that in this context it might actually represent the boy's powers as a whole. This means that Freeze might actually be the story of 5 magical boys who are stuck in a frozen world and have to find their lost love because that's the only thing that connects them together. But since love is you and you are the star, chances are that their quest might involve the star as well. Whether the actual plot will show us the process of them fighting chaos with this love or their quest to look for it, this would explain why the story is called The Star Seekers and why in the fan life they were looking for the star. But to know if I'm right or wrong, we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye!